Hello everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel and I'm super excited to be back on ThermOWeb's YouTube channel. Today I am making a card that is fully based on this layout from Katrina Hunt, design team member of ThermOWeb. So I have Katrina's layout photo on my phone here, and I'm going to take a look at some of the elements that I really love about this layout. One of them is all the amazing hearts at the top of the layout. That's what really drew me to this, and the bright colors. And so I'm going to create a quick sketch of how I would turn this into a card. First thing, I'm going to turn it into a vertical A2 card, so it's going to be a rectangle rather than a square. Then I'm going to take where her title is, and I'm going to create my sentiment there. At least this was my idea at first. And then I have all the hearts on top of that, the way that she has all those hearts exploding out of that beautiful summer title there. So I also noticed that she created her hearts with some flock. I'm going to do that as well. And that this whole layout is matted. So it's like a 12 by 12 layout with pattern paper matted on top of pattern paper. And then instead of the photos and pattern paper underneath, I'm going to have two pieces of pattern paper in the center here. I'm going to have one that's a different pattern at the top and one that's a different pattern at the bottom to kind of replicate what she has going on at the bottom of the cloud patterns with the other things. And then I'm going to mat on some cardstock in the background to create that layered look that she has. So these are the basic ideas that I am working with, and this is the sketch that I created. Like I mentioned, I am going to pull out a whole bunch of flock colors because I do want to create kind of that rainbow effect that she also had on her layout. I did grab some Doodlebug design pattern papers that I thought would go really well with this rainbow of hearts too. And I'm just going to figure out which colors that I want to use that are going to go really well with this and work well on this card sketch. So everything is going to be near me. I have this piece of pink cardstock that really goes well with the pink in the pattern papers. I'm going to mat the white on top of the pink. So I'm going to cut the white down to 4 by 5 1/4, as the pink is going to be A2 4 by 5 1/2. Then I did cut a couple of pieces of pattern paper that are smaller than the 4 by 5 1/4 so that you can see those. I have the same stamp set and dies that Katrina used on that layout there by Catherine Pooler. It's called Hip Hearts. So I thought I should use those as well, and that will kind of mimic the whole bursting hearts at the top. So I am cutting all 3 of the dies out of a bunch of different flock colors. I'm using some of the neon flock and some of the traditional flock colors, and I'm just going to cut them all out just as is because that flock is on a thin piece of paper. I'm not going to add adhesive yet. I didn't have any blue flock, so I decided to do some stamping with the heart stamps from the Catherine Pooler set. So I have a filled in medium and larger size heart, and I'm just going to stamp that twice with Catherine Pooler's Cummerbund ink, which is one of my favorite colors. And then the stamp set has layers that you can stamp on top of that filled in heart layer. So I am going to pick up a couple of those layers, and I'm going to use the Fiesta Blue to stamp the layer on top of the cummerbund. And that's going to create my blue hearts because I definitely wanted a couple of blues. I'm going to take the coordinating dies and hold them in place with some ThermOWeb purple tape so that I can run those through my die cut machine, and they will be die cut similarly to the flock hearts, only this time these little guys have patterns on them as well. I'm going to use my favorite tape runner, which is ThermOWeb's Memory Runner XL, to adhere the white cardstock down to the pink cardstock. You probably don't need to use as much as I do, but it is very hot here and things melt easily, and so I wanted to make sure this was going to stay adhered. But this tape runner is very strong. I'm going to use my We Are Memory Keepers corner chomper, and I'm going to chomp a 1/4 inch rounded corner at the top of this pattern paper and the bottom of the dark pink pattern paper, because once they all go together, the center will be the line between the two. So that's how I'm going to lay this on top of the white on top of the pink cardstock. So I'm going to lay the bottom pattern paper down, and then I'm going to use tape runner to adhere the top. I'm just going to keep sliding it until I feel like the margins are going to be the same on both sides and the top and the bottom. I'm using Waffle Flowers oversized rainbow stamp set that says "Wishing You A," and then I'm going to stamp that with the Stamp Market's black ink, which is my favorite sentiment ink. And I'm going to trim this down to a sentiment strip. So I'm going to have it be nice and thin, just a tiny little margin around the top and the bottom, and then also on the sides. I'm going to use some iCraft Easy-Cut Adhesive behind some black cardstock because I'm going to die cut the rainbow from Waffle Flowers die. So this Easy-Cut is a thin double-sided adhesive. You can see this is one release paper, the other is behind the really thin piece of adhesive. So I've cut a piece of black cardstock to 6 by 6. I'm going to peel off the Easy-Cuts release paper and lay the adhesive down on the black cardstock. And I'm just going to line it up as best I can, corner to corner. And then those little pieces at the edge that do not have Easy-Cut on them, I'm going to use non-stick scissors just to trim them off, just to make sure I don't die cut anything on a spot that doesn't have adhesive. This die that I'm going to be using is very thin and I want to be able to adhere it really quickly and easily. So I'll take that waffle flower rainbow die, again super skinny and fine, and I'll lay the cutting side down on the cardstock, not on the Easy Cut, which is on the back. Then I peel off the die with my purple tape and I just pop out that rainbow die cut and then just peel off that back protective layer. Just be really careful when you're doing this with a die like this because it's very fine and it's really easy to get the die cut out of shape and then it looks a little wonky on your card. And you try to do what I am not doing here, which is try not to touch a lot of the die cut because that is the adhesive that you'll be using to adhere it down. So the best you can, just try not to touch all the pieces so that it really does stick. It's very good, strong adhesive though, so even with me touching it, it still stays down really, really well. So I'm going to place that down on my card, try and straighten it out as best I can. The little dot for the eye was conveniently stuck inside the die itself, so I used my Spellbinders 2-in-1 to peel off that release paper, and then I placed the die over the die cut to line it up, and then use the paper piercer to pop out the dot. And then it's adhered to the rainbow part there. So that's a really easy way to deal with little dots, things like that. I put some tape runner on the back of my sub-sentiment and I'm just going to put that flush to the left-hand side and kind of covering up that line in between the two pattern papers. Now I'm going to adhere all of my hearts, and I just happen to be a very linear both scrapbooker and card maker, so I didn't really recreate the burst of hearts that she had, which I love so much. I ended up doing them a little bit more linear, but I did have fun with some of them being popped up with the new ThermOWeb foam squares and some of them being flat to the card with the Memory Runner XL. The thing I love about these foam squares is that the release paper behind it is very easy to peel off. I usually struggle with those release papers on the back of foam squares, but this one I'm showing you in real time because it really just takes me a couple of seconds to peel them off, and so I think that it's just so much easier than what I've dealt with in the past. So now I am just going to line up all of my hearts. I end up with 3 different rows of hearts, and I'm just kind of changing up what colors start where, but I basically keep them in a sort of rainbow and then just play with the dimension. Some are popped up, some are flat. And I really just wanted to add this last one in, so I put it right on top. So you can see I ended up changing it from the layout, even from my sketch, because the sentiment is at the bottom, the hearts are not bursted, but the inspiration you can definitely see is still there. And I love this card so much because I loved Katrina's layout so much. If you're interested in checking out any of the supplies that I used today, they'll all be linked down in the YouTube description box below the video. I want to thank you so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful day.